Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday, Christina's favorite day of the week. Hope everyone has started this day feeling blessed and not stressed. Today, I am super excited. I always am, but it always feels great when I have people on the screen that I can say that I know personally and have a deep love and admiration for. So, tonight, we're going to have a great, amazing young man. But before we get into that, we're going to do as we always do. Remind folks while we're here today, scrolling across that screen is the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can reach us as well at loveshouldnothurt.com. Look forward to a new website that is coming soon. Remember that you can reach us on all of our social media platforms as well. But if we do not respond to you within the time frame of 24 to 48 hours, please do dial that National Domestic Violence Hotline number or dial 911 if you feel you're in imminent danger. The last time we were on this screen, I was joined by one of my I lost my words. I was joined by one of my originals, Jacqueline Rodriguez. She joined me for our documentary. She is a part of this mission that I call Love Shouldn't Hurt. And I had a great time. We closed out the month of domestic violence. And it is November, everyone. Super excited. It is almost the third week of November now, which is crazy because I feel like it just started. But Thanksgiving is right around the corner, a holiday that I know that all of us love because we're thankful to sharing that time with our family. So thank you so much for being here tonight, Dolly and Marilyn. I see you ladies already. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night, because who knows when you're watching this, if it's tomorrow or if it's midday or if it's right now. So thank you guys for being here and everyone else who is watching. So tonight, we are going to be talking to Jordan Polk, who holds a very near and dear piece of my heart because I have known this boy since he was in his mama's belly. Yes, he is like family. He is my nephew. He is just such a great and amazing kid. And if you watched it almost a year and a half ago, Jordan joined us then too for another youth edition. He did a great show. And all I remember is that all of the women who were watching were in love with him and all of how much of a mature man he was. And he's grown more than a year and a half now. He looks like a totally different person. He got a whole lot of hair and he's going to bring us a whole lot of different objectives tonight. So tonight we're going to be talking about pretty much what the perspective is and what the thoughts are on those who are younger. And I'll say youthful, right? Because I just turned 42 last week. So he's a little bit younger than me. Okay, he's a lot younger than me. So we're going to talk about what the youth think about domestic violence instead of listening to us old fogies who are always on here talking about it. I think it's good to have fresh ideas and to have fresh people come on screen. So we're going to bring Jordan back. Again, I'm excited to have him. And if you're on here, give him some love tonight. Show him some blessings. Hello, Olga. We do see you. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to talk.
So am I. I have to tell you folks that oftentimes people either request to be on the show or just give me topics. And we were at a birthday dinner last week and he said, Titi, do you still do your podcast? And I said, I sure do.
hmm
And he said he would love to be here. There's his mama. Hi, Anna. I see you. Thanks for joining us. I was super excited because this young man is a phenomenal young man. It's crazy to watch people develop, Jordan, right? So I remember seeing you as a baby and running around and this chubby little thing. Hi, Liz. I see you. Look at that. Another Titi on here supporting you. And now that you're older, you're turning into this amazing, hello, Esther, this amazing man. And I'm like, check him out. But I love to hear, you speak because you speak so well. So I think tonight is going to be a good night. You ready?
Yes, thank you. I'm
All
ready.
right, good. So I told you to look into some stuff, research some stuff. So we're going to get into that. So
hmm
tonight we're pretty much going to talk about kind of like a youth perspective. You no longer are a teenage 12, 13, 14-year-old boy. You're older, you're out of school,
hmm
you're doing mature things now. But the perspectives that we normally give when we're on this show are usually older people, women who have dealt with domestic violence. We don't most often talk with youth, and that's something that I enjoy doing from time to time. So I'm very excited that you're here. We're going to get into different things. I have a few videos for us to look at and kind of discuss. Tell me one of the things, not everything, but one of the things that you learned when you were looking things up today, something that kind of stood out to you.
Well, something I did learn was that a statistic showed that 62% of pregnant girls have been victims of domestic violence. And I don't know, that just blew me away because, number one, horrible, but the poor girl's pregnant and she's already at a young age. So it just really surprised me.
Absolutely. That's a good one to talk about because, a lot of my abuse was when I was older and during my pregnancy and before my pregnancy. And I realized how difficult that was for me as an adult. So
hmm
I can't begin to think or fathom the idea of me being a 16, 17, 18-year-old girl pregnant dealing with it, right? Because you just went through this phase of being 16, 17, and 18, and it's hard enough to maneuver life at that age. So let's now join on the responsibility of a child, and now join on the responsibility of being abused by the person who's in your life. So I'm sure that that's something that's extreme for you to even look at. So, you're a boy, right? Most times we have women or girls who come on here and give their perspective. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
As a young man who has cousins, people in your life that are younger, that are, younger than you, that you're close to, your cousin Renaya, Alina, the girls who are always around. When you think of domestic violence and you think of those younger women in your life, what comes to mind when you think of domestic violence? Like, how do you feel about it, and how it would affect you if you knew one of them were dealing with that?
How would it affect me? I feel very upset, but I would offer compassion and empathy towards whatever victim it may be. I think domestic violence can be layered on so many different things. It can be verbal, mental, emotional, physical. It could be anything of those sorts. And if I were unfortunate enough, God forbid, that I found out that one of my family members were going through something so severe, I don't know. It'd be very tough because I don't know anyone in my family that I see as less than an amazing person. But so if that were to happen, it would just be the worst gut-wrenching feeling, because no one ever deserves that, especially the people I know.
So thinking of that, hello, Marilyn, I see you, my love. So thinking of that and thinking of those people, you already touched on it. You already said a few of the things, but a lot of people think that domestic violence is just hitting, right? They think it's pulling hair and beating on someone, but you named a few. What do you know? What are a few that you named already, and more that you know that are totally different from the physical abuse? What to you are forms of domestic violence?
Well, to me, I think physical abuse is the thing that's mostly talked about. But for me, I think mental, verbal, emotional abuse is like equally as important as any other, because those can hurt you in ways that people can't even imagine. Like, someone can say something to you that creates an insecurity, or it can create a form of a broken boundary, or someone can hurt you so emotionally that it can cause you to have some form of mental illness. So it's something that's very crucial, and I feel like should be talked about more.
I think that, and you said that perfectly, because I think that people don't realize how much mental abuse can linger a lot longer than the physical abuse. I've said oftentimes that you could hit me and bruise me or break whatever bone, but those physical things can be healed. Within time, the bones will heal. Within time, the bruises will go away. But the lasting effects, and that's not just with domestic violence, right? That's even with, with our families and our kids. Like, sometimes we say things to our kids and we think, wow, is she going to think about that when she gets older? Like, did my words hurt her to that degree? And I think that it's the same thing with mental abuse and emotional abuse. A lot of the victims who have gone through domestic violence, I don't know about, I can't speak for everyone, but for myself and my immediate circle of women who I have interchanged with, who have dealt with domestic violence, I think that the biggest thing that we have held on to is the mental abuse, is the emotional abuse. I'm 42. I know Titi looks great, but I'm 42. I'm 42, and my abuse was almost 22 years ago. And there's still things from that time, hello, Lynette, that I think of, things that I remember, words that were said to me that I continuously still think of myself, just impressions of myself and beliefs in myself because of what was said to me. So they're super important. I'm going to play one of these videos so that we can watch it, so that we can kind of get the ball rolling and talking about the different views from people your age, it seems, on domestic violence. So this one is circled around toxic, right? Toxicity, and being able to see those signs, kind of seeing when you're in a relationship and kind of familiarizing ourselves and seeing quickly, what are the toxic traits that these people possessed? What are things that already, even as a teen for yourself, or, 20, 21-year-olds going into these relationships, what can you already see as toxic? So this is what this video is talking about.
I think it can be difficult to recognize toxic behaviors because of how it's become so normalized. We try and have conversations about care versus control, and what that can look like is you're in a relationship with somebody and you tell them, hey, I'm going to go to this place for lunch and I'll be back in a certain amount of time. But as anything in life, plans change and you could end up across the road eating somewhere else. So it's in that situation, you have to think, is this person asking you why you've changed your location because they care about you or because they're trying to control you? The point where you could recognize, hey, this is getting a bit much, is when you think you're doing the right thing, but this person's trying to convince you that you're not, and they're denying your experiences. When you begin to question yourself and not feel comfortable in who you are anymore, is when you could realize that I don't know if this is the right thing for me. There are certain stepping stones that lead to the heightened impact of domestic violence. And there are stepping stones such as, checking someone's location, asking for their password, monitoring how they dress or who they're hanging out with. I think education, especially respectful relationships education, is so important because it gives young people the tools and knowledge that they need to better prepare themselves for the relationships that they'll face in the future. And I think it needs to be more than just a tick box for schools, because it's so much deeper and there's so much to unpack.
Absolutely. I was taking my head and writing notes as I was watching that.
Mm-hmm.
So you've already dated through the years. You're I refuse to believe that you're becoming a man, but you kind of are.
Yeah.
So you started dating and things of that nature. What are you looking at that video? Are there certain things watching that video that you can say that either you've been guilty of or in your previous relationship, like asking for passwords, looking for like their location, and if they change and they say, oh, I was going to the mall, but I'm not going to the mall anymore. Are those things that you feel that you've experienced or you've done yourself?
Yeah, I can say for some of them I've experienced and some I've done, and I think they definitely are toxic, and I think they're rooted deeply in many things, especially in insecurity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Your mama says DV is not gender specific. It may be less violent for males, but experience just as hurtful. Absolutely. And that's something that everybody, you see that right there, Ana Adorno, that's his mommy. Give her some love. That's his mama. She's supporting him. I think that it's super important for people to realize that, because I think that, I think more so in the past few shows, we've had some new people watching, and we've begun to talk about women and what women feel and domestic violence. And I've had newcomers come on the show who've never seen it, and they're like, remember to mention men, remember to mention men. And it's important, right? Because when I started this mission 4 years ago, my ideal and my route for doing what I did was based off of my experience as a female and the other person's experience as a female and the women around me. But as I took on this mission, my inbox began to fill. And I say that all the time, that it was crucial for me, I feel like, to do this. This was something that I was meant to do, because it gave me such a greater awareness for what I was doing. There were men who were inboxing me that I had never in my life believed dealt with domestic violence. And they were just like, yeah, let me tell you my story. And I'm like, wow, like men go through this just as much as women do. And I think that there's something that Zulma, she's another one of the originals who did the documentary with me, something that she always says is that bullying when kids are younger kind of starts as a form of domestic violence. And people are like, well, bullying is different. It is, but in a way, if you think about it, and you think about it as children and people who are younger as they're beginning to grow up, oftentimes people will say, oh, he hit you. Like if a little boy hits the girl, oh, he hit you. Oh, it's because he likes you. He hit you because he likes you. Or, if he sends you a note like you're stupid or you're ugly, it's just because he likes you. And that's something that I feel as a parent we need to stop doing. We're kind of normalizing it for our kids to make them believe, oh, those bad gestures that he's doing towards you is because he likes you. Or if a girl's mean to you at school, well, she's only doing it because she likes you. She's only making those passes at you because she likes you, but they don't realize that even at such a young age, they're all toxic behaviors. They're bad behaviors. And instead of us saying, hey, don't accept that, we reinforce it by just laughing and saying, oh, but they're kids. He just likes her. Um, Bullying, the same thing with bullying. People believe that it's okay as you're maturing and going through your teenage years, and they take it as it's not so serious, she's being bullied, but people don't realize what effects bullying can have. And then as you get older, it's the same sort of bullying. Have you ever heard of gaslighting, Jordan?
Yeah.
Have you? Right. So what do you perceive to be gaslighting? Because that's huge within domestic violence.
I mean, I know a lot of people have their different versions of it,
Yeah.
but from what I can best understand is that it's kind of like when you have an opinion or view and someone tries to make you feel otherwise and being wrong, I think somewhere
Right.
around
No,
there.
absolutely. So in a domestic violence circumstance, lots of times gaslighting is looked at in that same way, but with different twists to it. So, if they just made you feel terrible, they just made you feel like you're a horrible person, you're fat, you're unworthy, you're unloved. When you try to rationalize and say, no, but this is why I did this, or this is how I feel, they make you feel like you're crazy. Like, no, I never, even though they just diminished everything about what you were saying. No, you're fat, you're disgusting, you're ugly. When you respond back like, but you hurt me, it was like, oh, I didn't say anything hurtful to you. That's the way you took it. Oh, you must be crazy. They make you feel as though everything you're feeling is just you're nuts, and it's not intentional when it was intentional. What you said to me was hurtful, and the way that I'm feeling is right. But you're making me believe there's nothing wrong with what's happening. And that's something that's major. She said in there that there was a lot of toxicity. You don't realize it at first. I've had instances where my daughter has shown me her iPhone, and she's like, oh, and find my iPhone. I know where all my friends are. And, they can find each other. And, that appears innocent, right? But it turns to something totally different and toxic when it's like, oh, well, why is this person in that location? And I didn't know that this person was that location, and they didn't tell me that they were going that place, or they didn't do. And that's how it continues to go on. And they're all toxic traits, even with friendships, right? Because we're not all talking about domestic violence when it comes to Alina and the other girls. It's like friendship. But toxicity can be signs that we also don't see because we don't realize it at the time. So for teenagers and for younger age, it says that those toxic traits and those toxic examples, they do not realize. They don't realize that they're toxic. So they continue early on to start to date and feel like, oh, that's not a big deal, because to them, it's not major. But as you get older, you start to realize, wait, those were like red flags. Like they were super toxic. So I started to ask different people before you came on, what should I ask Jordan tonight? What are questions that you think that I should ask him tonight? And different people gave me different things. So you already answered, actually. Anna, Nine sent me a question, his cousin, and she said, ask him how he would feel if myself or Alina or somebody close to him, Ava, would be hurt. So you already answered that question. So let's give Nine a shout out for that question.
Yeah.
So Amanda's question, Amanda. Amanda asked, is domestic violence something that's openly spoken about amongst the youth? So have you ever heard any of your friends or yourself ever spoken openly about domestic violence?
Yeah, I've had conversations with people where that's been a thing. I don't think it's talked about enough, but I've definitely been witness to conversations with victims or people that are just trying to spread awareness on the topic.
Are they like around your age, like 19s, 20s? Yes.
Yeah, well, like especially when I was in high school.
That's good to know. I
Yeah.
didn't think teens really talked about it. That's good to know.
Mhm.
She says, what are the themes? But I think you already explained that. She also says, do you think social media fantasizes toxicity, hence minimizing unhealthy relationships?
I think so in a way, because I think a lot of times social media has its good things about it, but also I think social media can almost give a group of people a negative connotation and make them seem more toxic, or even instill toxic habits or behaviors towards your partner. I can do this, but um, I think, yeah, it definitely can instill toxicity and doesn't teach you to have communication and get to learn your partner's boundaries and try to understand your partner.
Right. People always say to me when they talk about social media, like, oh my God, you're so active on social media. And I am, because of my platform, because of the show and things like that. Something big that I realized last year was that that toxicity was just huge in my phone. And when I don't mean me, but I mean social media. Like I spent so much time on my phone looking at people's stories or just rationalizing situations from a distance because I'm looking at it through social media. And it made me, and I've heard this from other people, it made me sad a lot. And I always say, if I didn't have my platforms, I probably would no longer have social media. I think I'd take a huge break from it because I think that social media conceptualizes it a lot. Like they make it okay for people to just bully one another or talk down to one another and put people down, or if they see a nasty picture calling people ugly or fat, or this is why your man cheated on you and this is why her man cheats on her, and just it allows people the space to just be ugly, if that makes any sense. So I believe social media has played a huge deal. Do you find that you've had moments where you want to kind of take a break and a step back from social media because of negativity that you've seen on there?
Yeah, almost every day. Yeah, almost every day. Yeah, social media is it's a jungle of negativity
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
It is. How old are you, Jordan? Tell us how old you are.
I'm 19 years old.
Oh man, you're gonna be 20. I can't take it.
Yeah,
Terrible. Lord Jesus, you're 19. So
yeah,
you were on here almost a year and a half ago, right? And I had told you at that time to send your mom a message and kind of like a thought. And I asked you as well, if your mom experienced domestic violence, what would you feel? And you were very like passionate about it. Like you'd be very angry and upset. It's almost 2 years later. And I'm sure that your feelings have not changed towards that thought. You obviously would still feel the same way, but thinking about the last time that you were on, right? So let me give you background. This is what I mean. You told me, Titi, do you still do your podcast? I'd like to be on. Back then, I asked you, hey, Jordan, you ever thought of coming on and being on my youth edition? What's the difference then from now? Like, what was your interest in doing it? And just because you know the topic, right? And it's not easy to talk about. Every time I try to get the girls on, it's like pulling teeth because they're like, oh, and that's more of them being scared. But what is it about what our platform discussed made you interested in returning to us almost 2 years later?
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons was that the conversation that we had, like talking about domestic violence in all groups, and I wanted to contribute to you and contribute to what you stand for, and I like the message that you always put out. And I thought this conversation we had last time, it was fun, but it was also insightful and gave me a lot of clarity on my life and my habits and the people around me, what I should and shouldn't do and shouldn't take from others. So that's why I wanted to come on, because, this is a conversation that needs to be had between women, between men and women, between men and men. And I look up to you as a, figure in my life. So I wanted to have a conversation with you.
Oh, that was an amazing answer. The last time you were on, I was like, I want to cry. No different. All Titi does is cry. So your mama says Jordan has supported his friends, both genders, when they're having difficult times in their lives. That's because Jordan's awesome, Anna. You raised him, girl. She says, wow, to your response. So that is a good way to put it. So before we get into the half mark, right, and we get into talking about it, how do you feel about the fact that she said it in the video, the society has normalized it so much? What are your feelings? Like, do you agree with that society has normalized domestic violence so much?
Yeah, I think society has normalized domestic violence a lot. They put it down. They almost seem like you have to be okay with certain things. I think, at least from how I was when I was younger, I was taught like as a guy, but I think also some women feel like, when people are going against your own boundaries, kind of you have to accept it because you love them. And, they teach you all these things on how you need to act regarding your gender or regarding your social status. It's just the tough thing. So yeah, I agree with that.
I love Jordan. We love Jordan. Everybody agrees. Everybody on here is saying that. You're such a well-spoken young man, and I love it. And that's a testament to, who you've been raised and what's been around you. So we're going to go to our half mark, like 4 minutes early, just so that we can continue with this conversation. So I'm just going to do as I do and remind folks while we are here. That number is scrolling across your screen for the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also reach us for now at loveshouldnothurt.com. New website is coming soon. And all of our social media platforms for anyone that's new and that is watching. If we do not respond within 24 to 48 hours, please do hit up that hotline or dial 911. So Jordan, I have a million videos. I'm like a
Mhm.
TikTok fanatic, and everybody's so sick of me because every time I'm on here, I'm playing TikTok. So this week I'm not playing TikTok, right? Because I
Okay.
don't want to play into that stigma of TikTok. So, so I have another video. It's not much speaking, but I think that it's very impactful when you watch it. When I saw it, I was like, oh, okay. Let's watch this real quick. That's I was like, wait, oops. um, that's a little hard to watch, right? Well, a little bit for me.
Mhm.
I think back when I watch things like that, and I think back to moments that I can remember when Alina was a child, and I thought she couldn't hear the arguing and the yells and just different things that I was going through. I wasn't with her father once she was born. We were already separated, but the abuse was constantly around and ever present. And people oftentimes kind of say, the kids, it's me that's dealing with it. It's not the kids that's dealing with it. And they don't realize that the kids do deal with it, in ways that we don't get it. In the video, the baby is the child, because she was older, was laying in the bed and she had to sleep with sneakers because, in your mind, that means if something happens, I got to be ready to go. My sneakers are on because mommy's going to take me where to go. The little girl standing at the corner by herself, nobody's holding her hand. The baby's crying in her crib. They're arguing. They're not paying attention to her. Those are things that people don't realize. So in that, and watching that and seeing how young each of those children were, in your opinion, how young do you think this conversation should start? Because you're younger, so I want to see what you think. Where should these conversations begin?
Um, that's a deep question. I would
Mhm.
I'd probably say like start them young. So I probably would say like around 13 to 14,
Mhm.
only because, it's early enough where, you know, the kids, if they are, God forbid, to be experiencing that, it's early enough where you can prevent possible permanent damage
Mhm.
and maybe prevent them finding those toxic behaviors as something as a normality to where they may do it to other people or maybe stop some form of like PTSD,
Mhm.
and I think it's 14, 15, or even 13 is a good age because I think that's the age where you start to really kind of have a mind for your own and understand a little better, but it's still young. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's a good conversation to be had at that age.
good. Your mama says that video was so impactful and so true. No child should fall asleep with shoes on, but I've known those that did, which is very sad. I know plenty of children who go to sleep still with their shoes on, worrying about whether or not they have to get up. Um, I asked this question, and it was important for me to ask because, and I say this all the time, we receive positive feedback often. People are always like, what you do is great. We're believing what you guys are doing. We support everything that you do. This is great, right? But you have to realize that with anything in life, there's such positivity thrown at us, and then there's always negativity that's thrown at us. So there's people who are just like, you're crazy, you're bitter, you're stuck on the past, your abuse wasn't that deep. These are the types of negativity that we also get from this organization thrown at us. And a lot of people don't agree with the fact that my daughter knows about what's going on. They don't agree that kids should come on here and have this conversation. So I'm glad that as someone who's 19 years old can sit, watch, and say, I think at 13, 14, they should know. I think it's important for kids, especially, first of all, I want to say this. I'm super, super proud at the fact that at 19 years old, this is something that you're in support of for us to advocate for. When you were 18, you were on. And just you being, someone in your age range who says, yes, we've had these types of conversations, because it's not something that's oftentimes talked about. This is why we do what we do, because before I experienced what I went through, nobody did have this conversation. Growing up, it was something that was familiar and it was a norm, because being raised in a Hispanic home, elder people, for them, it was normalized. And it was like, well, your grandfather hit me. Your grandmother and I went through that. It's not a big deal. They normalized it. And when I started this, it was like, it's not normal. It's not okay. And it's not something that should be normalized as a child. And I got a lot of flack. A lot of people that were like, your daughter should know nothing about domestic violence, and you're damaging her and you're ruining her. Why would you talk to her about domestic violence? And I think, from my opinion, that it was important for me to instill this in her, for her to be aware of it, because she's going to go on and date. She's in high school now. She's a sophomore. She's going to go into her junior year, and boys are around, girls are around, and that starts to begin. And I think that it was super important at that age to have that conversation, to start to familiarize her with positive things and negative things, because I think that it's important for her to know what's good and what's not good. So as a teenager, you said that you have experienced it a bit. You've talked about it a bit. You've talked about what your families, if someone in your family have dealt with it. In your old one, it was last year when I watched the video earlier today, you talked about how bad you would feel if your mom went through it. When you've had these discussions, has it been with females, males? Has it been kind of like a mixed conversation? Who had these types of conversations? Was it, I just am interested in knowing the dynamic of the circle that spoke of it.
Well, majority was with female group, only because I have some friends and just people I've met through like therapies and stuff that have gone through their own moments of like, relationships or friendships, or their parents, where I had to listen or give guidance, or just be an ear for them. And you had a point with how you said people criticize you for telling Alina what happened in your past. But my opinion on that is that I wish I would have had a platform like this, or someone to talk to me when I was younger about domestic violence, because I feel like if I would have got this type of education you're offering now, maybe some of the things that I had to experience in my past, just due to not knowing what, domestic violence is, probably could have been prevented, and I would have not had to go through some of the stuff I had to go through. So I think what you're doing and what you've done with your daughter is an amazing thing, because it kind of prepares her. That's just my perspective.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do you feel, going through what you went through and just being who you are now, do you feel that it's made you a different person? Do you think that your experiences have made you a different person?
Oh yeah, I think definitely what I've gone through within my relationships and friendships, I think it's carved me out to be a very specific type of individual, for good and bad, and you said earlier in the podcast that there's things that happened years ago that still carry on to this day, and that's 100% true, because you can't just let go of things sometimes. Sometimes they just stick to you like glue. So, a lot of the things shaped me out to be who I am, and made me walk different presently.
Yeah, and see things differently, right? I'm sure that you have a different a different respect for certain circumstances and a different way to deal with them. I'm sure that you see things differently now, and you're like, we've all been guilty of dealing with some form of toxicity in our lives. Even the best families, even the people with the best upbringing, the most money in the world, have dealt with some form of toxicity in their life. And I think that it's us and changes us, and it allows us to grow with anything in life. When you go through certain things, circumstances, it allows you to, as you said, walk differently and present yourself differently and show yourself differently. Anna says, I agree with you, Chrissy. It's exposure that can only lead to a lifelong awareness and expectations in future relationships. So something that I did a few years ago was, instead of not only dealing with high school kids and kids that are 13, 14 years old, I shared in a day at a middle school. And I started the conversation, just like I said a little bit ago. I started it out on just kind of like bully and respectful talk and respectful touch, so that even though these kids that were only in the 6th grade and the 7th grade could understand, starting from here, 6th, 7th grade, how we verbalize what we feel to one another, how we say things to one another, how we express ourselves can be damaging, whether you consider it domestic violence or bullying or whatever your thought or take on it is at that age. It's all about respect and what we either allow to happen to us, or what experiences we cannot control that happen to us, no matter what age we are. We can't control being in the 6th grade and someone calling us dumb, or someone calling us ugly, or not liking our clothes. But it's a matter of your thought process and how you deal with it and walk through those moments in our lives. So I think it's important, and I'm glad that someone of your age, 19 years old, you agree with that, because I think that it's something that's important for people who watch and people who take part in everything that we do, that people know that even if you have children at home that are young, being conscious of how your relationships are around you, what they're witnessing and seeing, and also teaching them from the beginning, not that boy hit you and it's just because he likes you, but saying, oh, he hit you. Okay, then let's have a talk with the school or your teacher, because it's not okay for him to hit you. Because you need to start that early on, make that process known, so that they can get older and realize, okay, wait, I really shouldn't be dealing with this. Do you think that, and this is just a matter of opinion, there's no right or wrong answers, but do you think that some domestic violence situations, or maybe abusers, you think that's maybe like a cycle that maybe they've participated in, something that they've witnessed as a child?
Yeah, I think that can be a case. Like sometimes there's things in life where, you dealt with things as a kid, and so you've seen it and it becomes normalized. So then when you get with a friend or a partner, to them, it's something that's crazy, but the person may have a trigger or something that makes that horrible stuff come out, and to them it's normal and they just do it. So yeah, I can definitely think that, like you said, past experiences can carry on to the future.
Absolutely. So the next video is talking about just that, the cycle of abuse and how they see it.
I definitely get the feeling that the stories the media shares about domestic violence are only the most extreme cases that we ever hear about. I think they often say things like horrific, one-off murder, suicide, things like that, just very sensationalized language. Often the perpetrator is portrayed as an anomaly in society, when that's often not the case. I think the statistics show that it's very common for domestic violence to occur.
Often we hear the term domestic violence, we think about the physical, the punching, the stabbing, the murders we see online. That's what we hear, so that's what we think about when we think of domestic violence. But you don't think about what's led up to that point and the cycle that domestic violence is that leads it to that one moment.
There was a very extreme case where a man had murdered his entire family, and he was portrayed as an awful monster in the media, and then we didn't think any further about maybe what were the things that led up to that happening, what were the more subtle forms of abuse that were occurring before that final action. So I think the media just never really takes a nuanced look at how domestic violence can occur and kind of a holistic perspective on all the events that lead up to it.
I think it's important that we talk about it before people experience it. You don't want to have to get to that extreme case in the media. You want to be aware of the red flags and the warning signs that come with toxic relationships and be able to have tools to get yourself out of those relationships as well.
Good. So she spoke about a few things, but let's talk about some flags. She said that you should be able to spot those flags. What do you feel are red flags?
Red flags. I think a lack of communication, a lack of empathy, a lack of, I think someone expecting you to be perfect, or someone going into like a relationship or whatever, being them expecting you to be a finished product, not them wanting to work with you and it being like a cooperative thing. I think that's a red flag. I think someone that doesn't want to work with you, it has to be their way or it's the highway. I think that's
Absolutely.
a flag. I think there's so many things that can be a red flag, so many things.
So, ow, I almost hurt myself. It's live, people. You're going to hear my aches and pains. I'm getting older. So red flags and warning signs are major, right? People always say, but you knew that he was a bad guy when you met him. You knew that she was a bad girl when you met her. She did this to you. He did that to you. You should have known that from the beginning. I think that, and I can speak for me because I'm the old head. For me, the red flags were there at that time. But because I was so invested in just having a relationship, I didn't care, right, that they were there. You, I know, have a small past, and we've talked about this before, and even just with unhealthy relationships and things like that. Do you feel like from your past experiences, there were red flags that you definitely noticed and kind of just ignored? Or, and like now you can see them because now you're out of it and you're like, I should have saw that. Did you feel like, do you have moments like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think love can be blind. And I think one of the biggest things I've run into and a lot of my friends run into is that I tell them all the time that sometimes we're not scared of losing that person. Sometimes we're just scared of being lonely or being alone again. And, for me, I saw all those things, yet I didn't respect them and I didn't respect myself because I had them on such a high pedestal and I didn't have myself at that equal. I saw myself as less. And so I let them do the damage to me continuously, and then got to a point where you just break, the glass shatters from under your feet, and then you're falling into this almost endless pit of just, problems. So, once I got my footing again, I looked back and understood that, I now know what I want to avoid. I now know how I want to treat myself, how I want to walk on things. And, I think when you're invested in something and someone, it can just lead you to sometimes ignore yourself, your feelings, and walk you blind.
Absolutely. You said a bunch of things. Hold on. Let me just
My
said
bad.
a bunch. No, I love it. I love it. So before I get into the things that you said, I want to say that being someone who's seen you since you were younger and knows a little bit about the things that you've been through and seeing you now, I want you to know from someone who loves you and is around you that I'm so proud of you. I really, really am.
Thank you.
I know that you've had your tough moments, but to hear you speak, my eyes are watery because I get emotional, but to hear you speak and to know that you kind of went through these things and you have such a positive outlook now and kind of like see, and I'm not saying every day is perfect because it's not. I'm 22 years past my abuse and every day is not perfect. I still have days where it's difficult for me, days that I don't see myself as my 100% best. But someone who's seen you since you were younger till now, I'm super proud of the young man that you are because, you speak so well, one, and two, you speak in a way that you have learned from that and you've taken growth from it. Not everyone can do that. Some people go through abuse and not to say that your instance was abuse, but some people go through negative relationships and negative things as they're getting older and they don't learn from those situations and they continue to go back to the same types of situations and they take nothing from it. They don't know, they still don't get what happened and how it happened. And just listening to you talk, I'm like, wow, you definitely learned from your experience. And the fact that you can express it so well says so much about you as a person.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. And also, you also said, which I loved because it is absolutely 100% factual, oftentimes we're not worried about losing the person. We're just worried about being lonely. That's crazy because that is absolutely what I have dealt with at that time and even most recently in relationships where it's not really, I don't really care that the person is gone or if the person isn't going to be here. I worry more about when they're not here, I'm going to be alone. What am I going to do if I'm alone? So I deal with it and I tolerate it because it's like, then I'm just going to be alone and I don't want to be alone. So that was really, really good. Somebody just posed a question for you.
Okay.
Dali Velez, hello. She says, hi, as a young man, do you feel that peer pressure could also be part of your decision? That's a good question.
Like the decision to break up with that person?
Maybe part of your decision maybe to stay. Like maybe kind of peer pressure from maybe that person or other people like in your group, like, no, she's good, she's cute, stay with her type of thing, even if the person did not make you feel 100% yourself.
Yeah, I think peer pressure can 100% be a big possibility to stay within a relationship because you can have, friends in your ear being like, yo, man, like she's a 10, bro, like just deal with it and get what you need to get. Or you can have you have your own self peer pressuring you, like thinking like, dang, like I was alone, I had nothing. This beautiful person comes along and you're thinking like that 1 second of kindness that they give among the other 90% of negativity, you'll be like, it's so worth it, getting screamed at, thrown at, all these crazy things, when in reality, that isn't okay. Or you can have peer pressure from their parents, or you can have peer pressure from your parents, or you can have peer pressure from movies, if anything, like seeing how, as a woman, you need to act towards your husband, or sometimes movies make you feel like as a man, how you need to act towards your woman.
One of my questions.
Yes. Like for a woman, like you don't want to be like suppressed and you don't want to be like emotional. And some men, can have that moment of like masculinity all the time. So
Yeah.
I think peer pressure comes from all angles.
Yes, good. She wrote decisions to be with someone or anyone. So I think you did understand it. That's crazy. My next question was, how do you feel about how movies and music conceptualize domestic violence? How, in songs, men are not worried about degrading a woman and putting her down. In the movies, how, I've seen movies with Kevin Hart in it and, like Think Like a Man. I was just watching it the other day. And throughout the whole movie, they're talking about how Gail, his wife, would beat him and beat up on him. And it was a joke through the whole thing. Not to say it again, but Kevin Hart, I love him. But I went to one of his stand-ups live one year. And one of the jokes was about, I'm okay with domestic violence. I'm okay with domestic violence. And, if she continues to get in your face and get in your face and get in your face, and then she gets smacked and she doesn't understand why. And it was amazing to me to see how many people in the room, and I laughed too at that time because, it's a joke, he's joking. But then when you come home and you think about it, it's like, damn, that's not funny. Like, how is it that these people just joke about it? But someone who's lived with it, like I can think back now and watch it and say, yeah, that's not funny. It's not okay to say, oh, well, they keep on and they keep on. If she gets hit, then she's surprised. She's surprised because you shouldn't hit her. Or he's surprised because you shouldn't hit him. So how do you feel about movies and songs and how they portray women and men in those types of abusive situations?
I think, how do I feel with movies and media kind of portraying women and men? I think it can offer a very like negative and positive outlook depending on what type of media you were intaking. But for specifically like the negative, like you said, it kind of aids the problem of it being like a joke or not being taken seriously. And with your example of the Kevin Hart situation, I think it can be insensitive, because, no matter what the situation is, you should never hit your partner or your kid or your friend. That's just not the way to solve an issue. The way to solve it is that you detach from the situation or you calm down and have some proper communication. And yeah, it's not good because a lot of media, specifically on women, degrade and talk down and objectify women as if they can't have a voice, and that women, this is all that they offer, where that just isn't reality. And if you live in that box, you're never going to find happiness.
Absolutely. Good talk, Jordan. We're at the 50 mark. 50 marks. We have 10 minutes left.
Okay.
So one other question for you to give me a description. So if
Mhm.
you had to describe a healthy relationship, in your eyes, what is a healthy relationship? And there is no wrong or right answer.
Mhm. A healthy relationship is a relationship that understands that they're not perfect. It's a
Mhm.
relationship that understands that, you know, the journey of self-work is always going to be like a forever thing.
Yeah.
I think a healthy relationship is knowing one's boundaries and respecting that. Healthy relationship should mean, you know, a I guess you could say a worked on trust where you guys
Mhm.
are constantly working on your trust between each other. It's
Mhm.
having respect, having proper communication, and hearing each other out. Like never, I think it's good in a relation to not have an ego
Mhm.
and to want to support and bring up your partner, and you know, proper love. You know, love in all types of ways. If that's love in, you know, physical love like a hug, or if that's love verbal, or if that's love just listening. I think love is an important thing, never to be distant, and to, you know, support your partner, and to remember that no one's perfect. We're all going to make mistakes, but to remember that we can fix them and become better. And, you know, the future's bright for anyone. So, yeah.
Qué lindo. I love you, Jordan. So it is 52 minutes in, and at this time, I normally do our self reflection at the end, if you
Okay.
may, which means that I give you your moment on your own. I leave you on the screen. Don't be scared.
Okay.
And you pretty much your closing thought, kind of what you feel about domestic violence, about a show you've seen in the past,
Mhm.
um, and just your feelings maybe on the topic for tonight. But before we go, hold on. Your mommy says, I can take only so much credit for my amazing son, but this is truly how he feels. Oh my gosh, she loves you as much as we do. Anna, he's so amazing. We love him. Dolly says, Jordan, you are brave and confident.
Thank
Many
you.
young people wouldn't want to talk about this or give it their views. Absolutely, Dolly. He is a great young man. So I am going to give you your moment. I'm going to go off the screen. Titi will be in the back listening to you. But just give your final thought. It could be as short or as long as you want. Already?
All right. All right. Well, number one, I want to thank everyone that came to support. And I want to say that, you know, I think domestic violence is something that deserves a bigger conversation. For all the victims out there, if you need help, you know, you can come and reach this beautiful group of people. Um, and I think domestic violence is something that is so unfortunate. It's something, like I said, needs to be talked about. For the victims, I pray that you guys can find some peace within, you know, your problems, your past, or current issues right now. Um, I hope that with anyone going through domestic violence, or you know, going through any other type of thing in their life, that they know that they're beautiful, and whatever has that's keeping them down doesn't define them. You know, you all are beautiful, and just want to say thank you for everyone for listening. So that's my closing marks.
He's so cute. All right, I'm going to take you off the screen. I'm going to give my closing thoughts and my announcements, and then we'll come back together to say goodbye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, people, for always being here, always being super supportive and loving on our guests. I appreciate everyone who commented and everyone who made Jordan feel comfortable this evening. We try our best to bring you just conversations that are surrounded around domestic violence, but in different ways that you wouldn't expect. I know oftentimes adults, we come on here, we express our views, and women who have been in this situation come and we talk and we express our views. And we never have this moment to be able to just come out and speak about it. So I appreciate all of you just listening to him, giving him positive feedback. We love to do a youth view on domestic violence at least once or twice a month so that people can hear not only from ourselves, but also from youth who are out there who have not only experienced it or just have gone through this or experienced it with friends, families, or anyone around us. I think that it's important for us to listen to our youth as well, because as adults, we think we know everything. But sometimes kids can be a lot more honest. And I think that it's super amazing, especially young adults. Jordan is going to be 20 soon, who are going into this different part of their life to learn these things, to speak about these instances, and to continue to make it something that's prevalent in our community. His mama says that she loves me and I love you too. Marilyn says, such a handsome, humble young man. God bless him. Thank you for that. And Liz says, this was amazing. It was, and we love it. And I say it was because I take pride and joy and always just having good guests who just fulfill your evening. I am super, super proud of the fact that you guys come here and spend an entire hour listening to myself and someone speak on these views. So we will be here next Tuesday and we will hope to bring you another amazing guest. Remember, if you have not thought about it, start thinking about it, mujeres. March 18, 2023 is our official third annual Love Gala. We are super excited that we are going to have this again. We have a great time every year. And remember, it is always for a cause. This fundraiser is for our victims. It is a survivor's ball. We honor those who have survived domestic violence and honor those we have lost as well. All of the proceeds go directly to all of our victims. March 18th, 2023. Take your calendars, write it down, put it in your iPhone, in your Samsung, whatever it is. Remind yourself, we will be at the Waterfall Room on Southampton Road, bringing you our third annual Love Gala. So we hope to see all of you there. It was a great evening with great conversation and an amazing co-guest here. So thank you so much for being here, for enjoying your time with us, and for always just taking part in our evening. Thank you so much, Anna, for allowing your amazing young man to be on screen with us. Jordan!
Yes.
I hope you had a good time. Again, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you. It was an amazing time. Anytime I do this.
I love you. Have a good night. See you guys later. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.